Welcome to the latest edition of the Jungle Juice podcast. I'm Sam Gormley. He's Mick Nelson. Mick, happy Drew Chrisman, AJ McCarron, JT O'Sullivan, and Fat Randy. Days until the Bengals and the Patriots.
So
Happy Fat Randy Day.
Those are some good names, especially Fat Randy.
A legend. Bengals legend, Fat Randy. I mean, when does Fat Randy get into the Ring of Honor? You know what I think? I think it should just be his calf, though.
Yeah, sure.
Remember his calf in Joe Burrow's first game that he strained his calf supposedly on why he missed that game with the game-winning kick to beat the Charger, or I guess it was game tying, wasn't it? In Burrow's, I don't remember. It doesn't particularly matter, but
you know what I wish Fat Randy would make? I wish he'd make a cookbook. Like, it seems like he's probably eating some good stuff. You know, I imagine the cookbook's probably some good, big guy eating. You know, I like big guy food. I'm a big guy myself.
Without question. Yeah, he's a guy that you would trust when it comes to something to eat. Like if you're going to a restaurant, you want to ask a guy like Fat Randy, where should we eat? Where is the best place for us to go there?
Who do you think on the team has the best? Who do you think would give the best food recommendations? Like
Ted Karras.
Ted Karras would be up there, I think.
Cordell Volson, offensive lineman.
But also he doesn't know how to barbecue. So
that is true. That is true. You just got to go
to. I trust that. Orlando Brown Jr. probably eats good.
Offensive linemen are definitely the way to go.
Amarius Sims probably eat pretty good food.
But he doesn't know Cincinnati yet, so you can't necessarily trust him too much when it comes to that. We're going to talk a little bit more about food, especially with you, Mick. I forgot to mention this before the show to you later on in the show because I have an interesting question for you that I'm sure you've put no thought into at all, and that's what's going to make it great later on in the show. But we got a big one planned for you. It's crazy. This is the final show that we've made it. The Bengals play on Sunday against the Patriots in a real football game, so we've made it through the offseason. I think we had a show every single week except for one, so we did it. Great job. We've made it, and it's going to be really exciting. We're going to talk the latest about the Ja'Marr Chase saga, I think is the right word. Bengals announced their captains. We'll discuss that. They do officially have a starter at quarterback 2. We'll jump into that as well. Bengals Bold Predictions. We will also drop in with those. And then later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Tony from the Malcolm Go podcast. He is one of our cohorts on the Fansided Podcast Network. He hosts the Patriots podcast over there. He is going to help us preview the Patriots because Mick, this team is fascinating. New England. It's a fascinating team. Because there's so many storylines. We don't want to get too far into it right now, but I mean, we were joking before we came on air that, we're both in our late 20s. And really, this is the first time in our football lives that a Brady and a Belichick have not been at the helm of the Patriots. And that's a little weird. It's a little weird. Yeah. So we'll have to talk about that, and I'm sure Tony feels the same way. We'll finish off with making some picks as well. But first off, Mick, we want to invite everyone to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We are also on Twitter. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform as well as give us a 5-star rating, and that'll help more people find our show. Mick, Ja'Marr Chase, we got to start off the show that way, and the saga has taken interesting turns in these last really couple of days. So Chase doesn't practice. And then all of a sudden today, which is a big day, no contract, at least that we know of, he comes out and he practices. This was after when Zach Taylor had his press conference earlier today. They asked him, they said, hey, is Ja'Marr going to practice? He said, we'll see. Is he going to play? Zach Taylor said, we'll see. And pretty much every question that he asked about Ja'Marr Chase was, we'll see. Mick, does this mean anything that Ja'Marr Chase practiced today? Because if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, he practiced for 2, maybe 3 days, and then immediately went back into his hold-in. Does this mean anything?
He's playing.
How confident?
He's going to play. 100%.
100%.
100%. He's out there playing. Apparently, he did not speak to the media today. He did say in fact, that he was going to speak to the media on Friday. And
Correct.
happens on Thursday.
So you're
two of the biggest rivals of the Bengals.
So you're jumping into the conspiracy theory.
I don't think it's conspiracy now. I mean, there's already precedent that's been set for this, right? Like now it's just becoming a meme. It's great.
So you're saying that the Bengals are going to announce tomorrow, within an hour of kickoff, or maybe right at kickoff, that Ja'Marr Chase has an extension.
This is breaking speculative news. I have nothing to back up. I don't have any sources. We are not that, like, we don't have the greatest of intel, right? But we just sometimes we have feelings. We notice trends. We take note of what they say to two media members, what the players say. And I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen tomorrow before the game. Hour before the game, or even an hour into kickoff. I think it's gonna happen.
I mean, it would not shock me at all if something like that does happen. And I'm wondering if it is done. And that's why part of the reason why Chase has practiced today. But at the same time, these contracts are so, like, at some point it would leak if it was officially done. And I don't know if it's one of those things that they have a wink, wink, shake, shake deal done, and we're saying we're not really going to sign it until tomorrow at 6:15, and then, I guess it won't be Adam Schefter. It'll probably be Ian Rappaport will get the tweet that'll say, or the message that says, hey, it's done, 4 years, 100 and whatever it is, extension for Ja'Marr Chase, deal's done, however much guaranteed. Because, I mean, that's the thing for this deal. It's pretty cut and dry. The only thing that's not cut and dry, at least in my eyes, is what number that guaranteed amount is going to be.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's going to be a big question. I've kind of mentioned this, and I've seen some posts about this in recent days. I mean, I think there's a big question just with the net worth of the Bengals being the lowest in the league, and how much of that net worth is liquid cash, which you have to have in order to guarantee this money. You have to be liquid, and it has to be sitting in an escrow account. Now, there are other methods to get cash if you're low on cash, but the Bengals are, I think, fairly conservative investors. They've been their entire existence, essentially. So I think that's just been an interesting point of note. Also, them turning down the equity financing, the private equity financing, was Mike Brown being the only owner. That was just an interesting thing to see as well.
I feel like part of it, though, is that, the Bengals just, don't they have to? Like, it's 31-1. Like, they just, it's always that they vote against it. Like, it's almost like it's a tradition unlike any other.
I don't know. I don't really get it. You can still have a controlling interest in the franchise, but you issue out a little more equity, get a little bit more cash, a little more resources, in order to do so. I just don't know why you wouldn't jump at the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, it was one of those, and the NFL is so complicated. It's just another one of those aspects of this league and this game that just, I don't know. It's extremely complicated. So you are saying that this deal is going to be done tomorrow and will be announced tomorrow.
I'm going out on the limb, and I'm saying the deal is done tomorrow.
Pretty much in 24 hours. Because in 24 hours, the Bengals, or the Ravens and the Chiefs, I think, what is it, 8:20 Eastern on Thursday night? 8:25 or something in that realm. Okay, so there it is. In 24 hours, Ja'Marr Chase will have signed a 4-year extension, right? 160 million? Or do you have any bold predictions on that? We're getting ready to jump into our Bengals bold predictions, but I don't know if you have any Ja'Marr Chase contract.
140. I think it's going to be 140 million, maybe 142, or maybe a little bit above Justin Jefferson, because he's at 140, right, for 4 years.
Yeah, and then all of those numbers too are weird, because there's the you've got this factor in there and that, and it's combined with what he has right now and the 5th-year option, and it's contract. I know contract law isn't the right word, but it's extremely, extremely messy. But yeah, so hopefully we can be talking about that. That is 4 years, $145 million is his guess. That's a pretty good one. I mean, that's
I think that's
probably right around that. Like I said earlier, guaranteed money is going to be the biggest aspect that is intriguing to me. Other Bengals news, they announced their captains. Joe Burrow, Ted Karras, and Orlando Brown Jr. are their offensive captains. Sam Hubbard, Von Bell, and Jermaine Pratt on defense. And Akeem Davis-Gaither and Evan McPherson on special teams. Now, these are voted on by the players. So I always like this. People are like, any surprises? It's like, well, I mean, it's voted on by the players, so they're picking. It's not like this is a fan vote or something, because I don't think the fans would have voted for Akeem Davis-Gaither. The only one that kind of surprises me, but not really, is maybe Jermaine Pratt over Logan Wilson or Mike Hilton.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know that means anything, because even Zach Taylor, this is not even necessarily the players that he will send out to do the coin toss. No. Because sometimes he'll do, like, it wouldn't shock me if on Sunday that it's Mike Gesicki and Trent Brown. He likes to do those connections of former Patriots. Ted Karras, I guarantee, will be one of them. It'll probably be Ted Karras and Gesicki or Brown, or maybe all three of them, because he likes to do those connections. Who knows who it'll be against the Chiefs, because I don't think the Bengals have any former... Oh, Orlando Brown Jr. might be. Yeah. So he likes to do those connections with it. But I don't know. I don't think you read anything into these at all.
Yeah. Players voted for him. Must have showed some leadership in camp. Don't really have much else to say on it. Congrats to the team captains.
Yeah, without question. The other big news of the week was really, I don't think necessarily a surprise. It was that Dax Hill was officially named the starter at cornerback 2 for week 1 against the Patriots. I don't think this is necessarily surprising, because he'd been good.
Yep.
He'd been good in the preseason. I think we both were hesitant on what Dax Hill would look like a cornerback 2, but I think we both been as pleased as you could be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he has clearly shown that he's the better corner than DJ Turner. Also, I mean, you even look at his free safety tape. He had no problem like getting past defenses and enforcing turnovers. Like I think that's an area that was kind of a strong suit for him last year. Now he's doing that in a role that allows him to do that a lot more, essentially. And I think that, and it's part of my bold predictions. I want to, I guess, are we going to get into those next? Is that
we can. Agenda? And I do see here. Wait, if the mom asks a question here, Travion Williams is already re-signed with the Bengals, so he is all good. He will be back with the Bengals. He re-signed the next day. It was just some roster gymnastics, so he's already back as a Bengal. Absolutely, Josh. What were you saying, Mick? Sorry, when mom asks a question, you got to jump in there and ask first.
Oh wait, did Adele ask a question here?
Yes, she did about Travion Williams.
Hello,
I said yes.
Yeah, so I mean, so my bold prediction is that Dax Hill will rank in the top 20 of corners in terms of PFF grade.
Okay, yeah, just kick us off there with a big one there. I like it.
Yeah. No, I think I was really encouraged by what I saw in the game against the Buccaneers. Now I know it's preseason. Buccaneers weren't starting their starters, but I think that role, that outside corner role, suits Dax a lot better than the free safety role that he was in last year. I think he's going to be a lot better, and obviously the preseason and training camp kind of confirmed that.
I like that. I like that. So we're jumping into our Bengals bold predictions. Mick and I have each come up with 4 bold picks for this upcoming season. We got one that says Mike Gesicki is going to score a touchdown against the Pats. I like that. That might be decent odds too. If you're a betting man on just touchdown anytime, I'm sure you got pretty decent odds on that to maybe make yourself a couple extra dollars and so on. For me, my first one, this one was technically number 4 on the list, but I'll stick in the secondary and just do it to follow it up. I'm going to go the other side of the quarterback room and go with Cam Taylor-Britt. Cam Taylor-Britt, my bold prediction will be the first Bengal with at least 8 interceptions in a season since, I'll put you on the spot. There you go. In 2015. So there you go. Cam Taylor-Britt will be the first Bengal with 8+ interceptions since Reggie Nelson in 2015. Mick, do you know who has the Bengals record for most interceptions in a season?
Delta O'Neal.
Good job in 2005. I was upset at myself for not being able to come up with that because when I was looking that up, I was like, of course, I should have known that. But Cam Taylor-Britt is the option in my bold prediction there for the first one. Mick, do you want to take this? Matt asks, how has Moss fit into the offense so far this offseason?
I really don't know much about Zach Moss. I think that's like the one thing that's been a question mark for me. I think that the way that he is going to be used is the in-between the tackles runner and also the pass blocking specialist. I think he's the best pass blocker out of all those running backs, and I think they were hugely missing that last year with Drew Sample really being in the backfield for a lot of pass blocking downs. And you don't necessarily want a tight end back there. You kind of tip away the play when you do that. So I think that's kind of what Zach Moss's role is going to be. I think Chase Brown's going to be more of the receiving back, and his receiving numbers last year were really good, and I think a lot they can definitely build on that. So yeah, I think that's what Zach Moss's role is going to be, is the in between the tackles runner. He's not going to be a bell cow, but I think he'll probably be the first and second down back quite a bit of the time. And I think the carry split's probably going to be in the, 60-40, 55-45 range.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really close to the 50% mark. But I'm interested in, when we have this conversation when the Bengals are playing the Cowboys in December, what's that snap count look like? Because I'm interested if Chase Brown continues to just gain more and more experience and jump up there and potentially maybe he's the one getting 60-40 snaps come December. And it's one of the stories that I'm really interested to watch as the season goes along. Do you have your next bold prediction for this year?
Yeah. Jermaine Burton will be an offensive rookie of the year candidate this year. Anybody that's watched this show knows how bullish I am on Jermaine Burton. I think the guy is absolutely explosive, and I'm really, really interested to see how this passing attack looks like with him, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins on the field all at once. Now, it probably won't happen immediately. Andre Yoshavash took the starting spot on the depth chart for week 1, I believe, but I think it's going to be a competition between Yoshi, Jermaine Burton, and probably just those two for those snaps, for that snap share. So yeah, I think Jermaine Burton could be an offensive rookie of the year candidate. Was absolutely explosive at Alabama, posting an 80 receiving grade, averaged over 20 yards of reception. His average depth of target was over 20 yards, over 2.75 yards per route ran. Didn't have a drop last year, won over half of his contested catch situations. And he follows that up with an amazing preseason. Now, I know you can't put too much into the preseason, but what he did was impressive. I think a lot of people who've scrolled through Twitter have probably seen he had a perfect passer rating while targeted. He had an 84 receiving grade, caught 8 of 9 passes, 157 yards and 2 touchdowns, 3.74 yards per route ran, which is an insane number, and won 75% of his contested catches. So yeah, I think the guy is going to be a day one. Like he could, play really well out the gate for us. Now, when the coaching staff puts that trust into him, is going to be the real question for that.
I also had Jermaine Burton as one of my bold takes, but I went a different route. And my bold take, and I was not going to do this one in this realm, but I'll just do it since you just mentioned Jermaine Burton. And I don't think you're going to like this at all, Mick. Jermaine Burton will be inactive more than he will be active this season.
Really?
And here's my reasoning. You've heard a lot of rumbling and so on about, and it started off with the Al Michaels comment, which I don't think was necessarily true. But even Joe Burrow has said some things like he's got to get into the playbook. He's got to focus a little bit more and just put more emphasis on that. And it doesn't seem like that's happening. And I found it very interesting today that Joe Burrow's press conference, and you can say whatever you want about Joe Burrow, but he is very specific with how he talks. I think is probably a safe way to say it. If he says something, he means it. And there was a question from the media. It was something along the lines of your new additions into your wide receiver targets or something, along that lines. And he specifically mentioned or who he's looking to step up to fill roles. And he specifically mentioned Andre Yoshivash. He specifically mentioned Mike Gesicki. He specifically mentioned Jermaine Burton never left his mouth. He didn't even mention him as far as somebody who has stood out to him in camp. And let's be honest, if there's one opinion in the city of Cincinnati that weighs more than anybody's, it is Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow's trust is a huge thing. So because of that, and this is bold, I don't know how bold it'll be. And I hope you're right, Mick, because if you're right, that means the Bengals are having a great season. But I think that Jermaine Burton will be inactive more than he will be active, partially. And you might have seen this in our fantasy football league earlier, in a transaction that I had made, that I dropped Jermaine Burton and picked up Andre Yoshivash because I think we're going to have a big, and this is not one of my bold predictions, but I think we're going to have a big Andre Yoshivash year.
Okay, that's a very bold take, Sam. I don't think he will be inactive more than he will be active this year. Now, when he gets integrated into the offense, that's going to be the real question.
I bet he's inactive on Sunday.
Really?
Yes. Let's say, unless Jamar Chase does not play.
You think he'll be
unless Jamar Chase does not play, Jermaine Burton will be inactive on Sunday.
I hope you're not right, but you might be right on that one.
Well, but how about $1 on it?
Yeah, put $1.
There we go. We'll put $1 on it. There we go. To our listeners, we've seen it. Okay, what's your next bold take?
I think we see a massive jump out of Cordell Volson in 2023.
I like it.
I think we saw, an overall improvement from his rookie season to year 2 in 2023. And that's even with a really horrendous start to the 2023 season for Cordell Volson. I think you and I both remember the Aaron Donald game where he literally had a 0 pass blocking grade, which is
in his defense, Aaron Donald makes a lot of good guards look that way.
I still don't know how you post a 0 pass blocking grade, but it seemed like he really found his footing towards the midpoint of the 2023 season, particularly in the stretch from that first Steelers game to the Vikings match. I think he looked a lot better. We've seen a lot of jumps in terms of production, in PFF grade or whatever you want to call it, from year 2 to year 3 for offensive linemen. I think Cordell Volson could definitely benefit from that year 3 jump, and I think he could get there.
No, I like it. That'd be really big, and I think partially to that is the communication in the offensive line is a really big thing. And Cordell Volson, he had played with Ted Karras, but he had a new left tackle to the left of him, and you got to wonder how long that really takes. I mean, this. You could practice all you want, but without actually getting in there and doing a game, there's some aspects that you just don't know until it actually happens. So you got to wonder if how much of an impact that had, with it when it comes to Cordell Volson taking that second half jump. But if he plays really well this year, that's a really good sign for the Bengals. It's a really good sign because it's a make or break year for him. Because if he's not good, the Bengals are going to need a guard next year. Well, I think Alex Kappa's contract up at the end of the year. I think so. So they're going to need a new guard anyways. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes along that. I'm going to go here. T. Higgins has an all-pro level season.
Really?
What I mean by that is not necessarily getting an all-pro designation because the AFC is loaded with good wide receivers, but he's going to be in that conversation. Similar to what you were saying with Jermaine Burton. I think T. Higgins is going to go off this year. For one, I think he's motivated and also he's seeing guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar. I know Chase hasn't been paid yet, but still, we're using him in this. He's seeing that top tier level of wide receivers, and probably in his own mind, he's saying, "I'm one of those guys too. I should be making that amount of money." Now, I don't think he's quite to that level, but if he goes out there and has an all-pro season, he could in the free agency market go up into that $30 million a year range. So because of that, I think he is going to be extra motivated, and T. Higgins will have maybe not quite he won't get the designation, but I think he's going to be an all-pro level season.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good prediction to have. And not only is he in a contract year, but he's kind of coming off I guess, what do you want to call it? A disappointing 2023
I was going to say disappointing.
Season.
Left a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't as good of a season as his 2021 season or his 2022 season, or really even his rookie year in terms of the grading. Now, we did see some flashes of what he was able to do. I mean, he had a really good game against Buffalo in 2023, and then obviously had the really good game against the Vikings, where he had one of the greatest Bengals touchdowns I've ever seen. So yeah, I think that not only is he's in a contract year, but he's looking to improve off of that disappointing 2023 season. So I think it's a good take to have.
Your next Bengals hot take.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a much improved Myles Murphy in 2024. The way I could describe Myles Murphy's 2023 season was developmental, I guess, in a way. Didn't have a lot of snaps. I think he got integrated more into the pass rush scheme as the season went along. Had a 12% pass rush win rate. It was, pretty mid. Are you messing with the camera?
Yeah, sorry. Here? Keep going. Keep talking. I'm getting set up for our guest here in a second. I forgot to do that earlier, so keep talking.
No worries. So yeah, I 13% pass rush win rate in 2023. Had a 64 pass rush grade. His run defense grade wasn't great, but we saw him look much better in the preseason. Had 3 pressures on 21 pass block snaps. It's about a 14% pressure rate. So his pass block win rate was probably a little bit higher than that. Those are good numbers. Posting a 70 defensive grade, and also you kind of expect this out of a year 2 Bengals player at this point. You don't expect them to have like a really productive rookie season, but that year 2 season is where you start seeing them integrated more into game plans and so forth. And also, I don't know if Sam Hubbard's in a contract year next year, but they definitely have an out with him next year. Or let's say Trey Hendrickson, where there's also an out because of where the guaranteed money's pretty much already taken in that contract. Are we going to see Trey Hendrickson get traded in the offseason? I mean, that it's easier to move on from one of those guys if you see a huge jump from Myles Murphy in 2024.
I'll go really quick here into my last one. And I know this is a take I actually gave on this podcast. Gosh, I think it was beginning of the summer. And then we'll jump into Patriots talk. Dan Pitcher's not going to be the offensive coordinator next season because he's going to be a head coach.
Ooh.
I know you didn't like that take. I think he is. I think Brian Callahan's going to have a really good season with the Titans. I think he might do it. And I think you're going to see that Zach Taylor coaching tree become a little bit more attractive. You want young, offensive-minded head coaches. What better than Dan Pitcher to working with Joe Burrow? And I think if that happens, that's usually probably a good sign that the Bengals had probably a really, really good season. So that's my hope for the Bengals to do that. And I know, Mick, I don't know that you necessarily agree with that or not, but that's okay if you don't.
I hope that doesn't happen. Like, who do you promote after Dan Pitcher?
Troy Walters probably would be the guy in that realm. So I don't know. It'll be interesting nonetheless to see how that would go along, because I don't know. It would be a good problem to have, though.
Yeah.
Because that means that the Bengals have had a really good season.
At least the offense has had a really good 2024 season.
Yeah, without question for that. So without any further ado, let's bring on our new good friend from the Malcolm Go podcast, Tony. What's going on, Tony? Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tony?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. You guys are talking some serious, in-depth Bengals chat.
Yeah, I'm sure you're just enthralled over there talking about the Bengals offensive coordinators and so on, because I know these two franchises, it's weird for us to be like, Man, we get to kind of look down on the Patriots a little bit. We're the big bad
guys. The embarrassed Patriots fan. I know.
Because that's been us for so long.
If you paid me $1 million, I couldn't tell you one person that could be promoted to offensive coordinator on this current Patriots coaching staff. So I'm glad you guys can at least do that.
I love it. I want to start off with for one, we know you're the host of the Malcolm Go podcast, a member of the Fansided Network, which we are all are as well. For one, that can be found, Spotify, is it all the usual podcast platforms like we say?
Exactly. Everywhere. It's on Patreon, patreon.com/Malcolm Go podcast. It's everywhere. I mean, I don't know. I have a Discord where we just chat, talk 24/7, 365 days a year. Same thing. I think it's discord.com/Malcolm Go podcast, something like that. I'm terrible at plugging anything. So
we just have to feel like it's like, if you think we're there, we're probably there.
I like this whole setup you got going on. I am literally 1985 podcasting. It's like me and my friend with flea market mics, and we just talk to each other. Barely, like maybe 5 minutes about the Patriots now at this point. It's just there's nothing to talk about anymore. So it's like, is Drake May going to start? Probably not. Let's get on to what we did in high school. That's basically what happened.
Would you even want Drake May to start this year, just given the offensive line of the Patriots? And it seems like things aren't going very well at all on that side of the ball right now in training camp.
It hasn't been good for about 3 years. I mean, I didn't want Drake May to start. I said last week, I think, had to be the last preseason game they played the Commanders, and this was the starting offensive line of the New England Patriots playing the backups, maybe the third stringers of the Commanders, who were dead last in defense last year. They're starting a whole new offense, zone running, zone schemes, all this stuff. The left guard the play is to pull to the right, and Jacoby Brissett is supposed to drop back to pass. So the guard pulls to the right, bumps into the starting right guard, who's blown off the ball by the backup defensive tackle. And that left guard is supposed to block an unblocked defensive end. The unblocked defensive end, who didn't even make the team, runs about 95 miles an hour right into Jacoby Brissett's chest. And I said that Drake May is the backup. That Jacoby Brissett just won the starting job off of that play alone. So I've been fighting hard for Drake May not to play until at earliest, I would say Thanksgiving. They have a game in London mid-year, and then they come back and have a home game. I think that's like a good spot for him. I mean, the way I see it is like the offensive lines usually settle down as years go along. They don't usually get worse unless a lot of people get hurt. So, they'll figure it out a little bit more down the line. Defenses get slower, and then Drake May can come in and play. I mean, unless Jacoby Brissett gets his spine broken, which is a distinct possibility.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the one thing, when you have a rookie quarterback, you want them to be in the best situation that they can possibly be in. Or else, you have an offensive line that's not very good. You have a quarterback that eventually just turns into Zach Wilson, and then, bad habits start coming out of these quarterbacks. And Drake May is still a really young quarterback. I think was he the youngest?
Just turned 22. I think like this week. Yeah.
So I think he's one of, if not the youngest quarterback out of those 6 ever taken in the first round. And I don't know. I mean, say Jacoby Brissett gets hurt. Do you put in Drake May or do you put in Joe Milton?
I'd rather Joe Milton is a circus. So, he runs in, he comes in and he has zero accuracy. He throws the ball 100 yards. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but he can throw it a mile. And he runs around. He's the size of Cam Newton. He lowers his shoulders into people. It's, whatever. At least maybe it will look fun for a while.
So I've seen some speculation. It's probably some crazies out there on Twitter or whatever, pretty much saying Joe Milton's going to be the deep ball specialist of the Patriots. They're just going to have him in for 80-yard bombs, which I think he said he could throw a 95-yard pass, I guess, down the field.
Yeah, I mean, I watch. I've gone to a couple training camps and stuff like that, and he'll do stuff like that during, like, at the beginning of practice and the end. He could legitimately throw it 85 in the air. I mean, it's the craziest. I am not from a talented family or a talented town. I mean, I probably have never seen a human being throw a football, other than Tom Brady, like air yards, like 35. You know what I mean? That's probably normal. This guy doubles it, and it just looks like me throwing it 20. It's insane. Never seen anything like it.
To me, one of the most interesting aspects, too, of the Patriots as well, and we were talking about this as we opened it up, is, we're both in our late 20s. So for us, when we think of New England Patriots, we think of Belichick and Brady.
Yeah. So and now you're pretty close to live only knowing that, right? Yeah. So
I mean, that's all we've known.
Yeah. I mean, and really for us being football fans, and now, I mean, Brady's been gone a couple of years now, but now there's no more Belichick at the top. And that is fascinating as a whole. And that transition is interesting too, because, he retires, resigns, whatever, fired, whatever word you want to use to describe
out.
that. Sure. Yeah. And then, Gerard Mayo, 24 hours later, becomes the guy. Were you wanting a Belichick disciple like that? Or do you wish they would have opened it up and gotten Dave Canales or something, some guy that has no connection to the Patriot way? And how has that transition gone?
For me, first of all, I would say I didn't want Belichick to leave. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 38, but so this organization, I mean, you could say it, but it's really not true. But like ever since Kraft owned it, there was, even before, sorry, I should start before Kraft owned it. It was just a cluster of a mess, a new coach every year, 1-14, 1-15. And then, Kraft inherits Parcells, and then on, right? And then finally he meets Belichick with Parcells, likes his attitude, doesn't hire him at first, hires him the second time. Everyone knows the story. And for me, it was a formula that worked, and it couldn't not work, right? The only thing that didn't work was the offensive mind and the mindset that distinct play had to be known 100%, if you get what I'm saying. Like the quarterback, the wide receivers, the offensive line have to read the defense the exact same way 100% of the time, or it doesn't work. And if you don't have a genius quarterback running the show, it's not going to work. So like I was all for it's hard to say, because I was all for keeping Belichick and maybe trying to take away some of his roles. Because he didn't start as the GM, but he earned the right to become the GM. All of his coaches, all of his front office people at an unmatched rate were being hired by everyone else every single year. So it became like, okay, he had to rebuild the staff, rebuild the front office every single year until the point where he just became the GM. And yeah, he had final say and was bringing in, not hits. I mean, he would hit on certain players, a lot of players on defense, and then any skill players, would be late round, like lucky guys, like Julian Edelman. Obviously you got Gronkowski. He drafted two of the greatest players of all time on offense. So like it's hard to say that he was bad at drafting offense, but it got to a point where like without Tom Brady, he couldn't make it work. So I didn't want him to go necessarily, because I think the way he runs a program is the way it should be done, because I've seen it done. I mean, no one's ever replicated it. He did it for 20 years. Now it's kind of like, I don't know. Gerard Mayo gives 800-word answers to every easy question. I mean, he goes out of his way to kind of say Drake May was better than Jacoby Brissett in camp. And then he's like, oh yeah, but he's going to be the backup. He didn't win this, because at the beginning of the year, he says, whoever plays better is going to be the starter. Then he says Drake May was better, but he's not the starter. So he's a new head coach. He's my age. I mean, I remember when he was drafted. So, I mean, he might be a little bit younger than me, which is crazy. But I like the way that Bill Belichick ran the team. It was, it got annoying at times, and other people were like, they don't have any fun. Look at them. And then it does wear on you when they're not winning, And then, but when they're winning, like, you don't care about these guys not being in the media and stuff like that. He controlled the team. Everybody pushed to the same goal. I guess is what you would say. So, I mean, I don't know. You hear all the talk about Belichick disciples not really panning out, but there's plenty of guys that have done well on their own. Bill O'Brien did great. Vrabel, not really a Belichick, coach, but Vrabel did pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Brian
guys
Flores.
that Brian Flores. I like Brian Flores. I don't know. He got a rough deal down to Miami because they were trying to lose on purpose, but. It's weird. It's like we had our new receiver like at the airport the other day, Instagram living, getting a ticket from the police. I'm like, this is insanity. I've never seen. I mean, think about. Patriots didn't even talk in the media for 20 years, and now these guys are Instagram living it and like calling out the police. And then I didn't even know what happened, and then they're talking about it in the media the next day how the guy's getting disciplined. I'm like, oh, it's a whole new day. I don't know.
Yeah,
part of me.
That's really interesting, though. Yeah. It's really interesting to see that a Belichick disciple isn't running the tight ship that Bill Belichick has always ran. So yeah, I don't know. It's just really interesting to see that. What are your thoughts on Bill Belichick departing as the defensive coordinator of the Patriots? Essentially, I mean, we've seen top 10 defensive units pretty much every year for the past 25 years. In New England. I think those were huge reasons in the amount of Super Bowls that they won, those 6 Super Bowls. Do you think you're going to see a regression in the defense at all, or has there been any speculation of how the defense is going to be this year? Because I still think there's a lot of talent on that defense, particularly in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, I would still say, the thing, the genius of Bill Belichick was his creativity with the players and moving around players to, not playing out of position, playing, linebackers at safety or safeties as down linebackers or, blitz packages, things like that. That's the good thing of how they kept it was they still have most of the, 95% of the defensive staff back. They lost their 2 best players. They traded one and Barmore's out with blood clots. So, that's going to hurt. Barmore's, definitely their best down lineman. And, it's going to be strange because you got Covington is now the defensive coordinator. He's been on the staff for a long time. Obviously, Mayo was a player and then a coach for years. But I don't know if you could replicate knowing a quarterback's mindset as well as Bill Belichick did. He knew how to manipulate a quarterback. And he also had quarterbacks that were so good with Tom Brady where they were to work in hand and they could, work off of each other and basically say, hey, look, what do you see here? What do you see here? And he just knew how to pressure a defense. And there was also an aura of the guy. You've seen it plenty of times where people were kind of afraid to go against his defenses, especially in cold weather, especially in, in Super Bowls. Sean McVay coming up to him in the Super Bowl, basically praising him before the game. And I'm just like, oh, they already lost. Like you could tell that they already lost if they were just going into that thinking that way. It's just a way that he did it was just, you hear guys like Mahomes or Peyton Manning were like, I hadn't seen that coverage before or since. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that he did that can't be replicated because it's just his research, it's basic like his file cabinet brain of defensive strategy. Going back to, mid 80s when or in the early 90s when he shuts down the Buffalo Bills, he's using game plans like that against like Kurt Warner in 2001. I don't even remember my birthday. He remembers how to defend a certain play. The recall on the guy is just crazy. He could tell you literally a defense he would run against, the Chad Pennington Jets and, any day of the week.
Do you see him coaching in 2025?
Yeah. I think it's insane that he's not coaching right now. He's like a media mogul now. I don't know what's going on. He's like joined Instagram today. So it's a whole thing going on with this guy. He might end up liking it. But part of me knows that he just doesn't like Don Shula enough to come back and make sure that he wants to break that record, which I think he should have. Like I said, I think he should still be the Patriots. I think he earned the right to still be the Patriots coach and break the record with the Patriots. I just think that not even Robert Kraft. I think Jonathan Kraft was finished with like just basically dealing with his attitude and, you know, not winning. It's one thing to be winning Super Bowls and him, you know, not care about anything but football. But then, like, you know, when you're losing, it kind of wears on you, I'm sure.
You touched a little bit on the offensive line. And it reminds me a lot of, listen, if there's one team and franchise that knows what it's like to have a crap offensive line, it'd be Bengals fans. You know, 2021, the Joe Burrow offensive line, that how he made it to the Super Bowl with that offensive line, I don't think we'll ever really know, because 4 of those guys are barely even in the league anymore. 3 of them, I don't think, took another snap after that game in the NFL.
Yeah.
Is there any reason to be optimistic for the Patriots about that offensive line this year?
No, but I would say that the guys. So for Joe Burrow, that's the perfect blueprint, right? I mean, especially even going to next year's draft, you know, everyone's seen the meme of like Joe Burrow and then the lineman that says anybody, and then Jamar Chase and he's getting killed or whatever, and then like Jamar, and then, you know, a great offensive lineman, and then he's just throwing to anybody downfield. That's kind of like where I'm at right now. So I mean, they have built. I mean, they have the most money I think any NFL team has ever had left rolling over. It's close. It's something like that. It's like the most money any NFL team has ever had going into a season on this, because they didn't spend any of it. They couldn't attract any free agents. So they couldn't spend on any offensive linemen. I don't even think there were any real viable offensive linemen available. I mean, I think there was Tyron Smith from the Cowboys, and he went to the Jets. He's like late 30s. So they just have done nothing to draft and develop, and it's been a disaster from years ago. So this is partially the reason why Belichick's gone, is because probably 2 things: is failure to develop offensive line and wide receivers. And I would say a lot of that has to do with losing 2 guys earlier than that maybe you guys have heard of, maybe you hadn't. Was Ernie Adams, which is he was his research assistant / guru. You might see he's an odd guy. He's been on Julian Edelman's podcast. He's super interesting. He's like Rain Man when it comes to football. Never wanted to be seen. Literally sat up in a booth. There was a phone on the sidelines, rang to Ernie, and he was a guy like making picks, doing extra research on guys. And then Dante Scarnecchia, who was the offensive line coach for like 50 years in New England, who made, he can make anybody a viable offensive lineman and make good offensive linemen superstars. So, I mean, I know that they still utilize Dante to a little bit during draft and stuff like that, but they haven't drafted one that worked. And part of that had to do with, I mean, now I'm getting deep into the history, but like bringing in Matt Patricia to run the offense and trying to, trying to like change the offensive system under a lifetime defensive coordinator.
Yeah, that was an interesting move.
That was one of the believe in Belichick moves that maybe the only one that I regret. I mean, there's so many, gotta believe in Belichick. But even me and my friends were like, I don't know if this is going to work, but we wouldn't say it out loud. You know what I mean? On the podcast, we were like, just give it another week. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But never did. So they drafted for an offense that they didn't use. So they don't have the right players. And it's just, they don't have the right players to do much of anything right now. If they're going to run this offensive system, their most probably best offensive lineman for it, Cole Strange, who was their first round pick, reach like 3 years ago. He was the guy that was supposed to be kind of the anchor of this type of offense, but he blew his knee out week 16 or something last year. So whenever he comes back, maybe it will help. But for right now, it's going to be tough.
What's the story with Mike Onwenu? Is he scheduled to start in week 1? What's been going on with him?
I mean, he's far and away the best offensive lineman. The thing with him is that they wish that he could play all 5 positions, is what I think that the problem is. So they're like, okay, let's put Mike Onwenu at right tackle today and try and fill in I guess Dave Andrews is, he's good too. He's older, but he's been hurt all summer, so he hasn't played at all. So it's literally been Mike Onwenu at right tackle. Okay, fill in 4 guys. They're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's put Mike Onwenu at right guard. Fill in 4 guys that way. So they don't know where to play him, where it makes the whole team better. He's the best lineman, but does he play right guard? Does he play right tackle? They haven't decided yet. I would assume he's going to play right tackle at this point. But I don't know. I mean, he's good at right tackle. He's an elite right guard, and he's a good right tackle. So it depends on what's more important to you, I guess.
Yeah,
I know there's a couple of connections between these two teams as well. You've got Ted Karras has come from Patriots to the Bengals. The Patriots, though, get rid of Bengals legend Mitchell Wilcox. We're like, come on, did they not want to get any?
He was wearing 87, dropping balls left and right. I said, get that
sounds about right.
Yeah, that's the Mitchell Wilcox experience. But there are 2 former Patriots that have come over to the Bengals this year in Mike Gesicki and Trent Brown. What should Bengals fans' expectations be for those 2 guys?
Listen, I was as high on Mike Gesicki as you could possibly be. Especially because last year they had Bill O'Brien, who basically invented the 2 tight end set, which is the reason they had Hunter Henry. They tried to do it a couple years earlier with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Didn't work. And then they tried to recreate it last year with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. Now, Gesicki was open all the time. He was open, on the boundaries. He's fast. He's not going to block at all, but he's going to be open, and he's fast and tall. And he ran the seams. The problem was Mac Jones didn't see him fast enough, and Mac Jones couldn't throw it fast enough. So every time Gesicki was open, he was just, left kind of alone. He did make some big plays last year. He scored a touchdown game winner against Buffalo. He's a good player. He doesn't, like I said, he's not going to block. He's not going to be in line. He's basically a giant receiver, which is great for Cincinnati. You got 3 tall receiving targets for Burrow to go after. And he's a great red zone guy. And he's really good running the seams. He just, I had a floor for him in New England last year at 800 yards. I think he had like 3. So I was way off. But again, that was based off quarterback play and offensive line falling apart. Trent Brown has kind of been a different story. Trent Brown was, when he first came, I think he has to be motivated to a certain point where he's like, he played left tackle when he got here. He's enormous. He's like he's 6'9", right?
He's massive human being.
Massive. 6'9". He was as dominant a left tackle as there was in the league. They won the Super Bowl his first year. He was on his last year of his deal. He dominated all season. They were running screen passes behind him. He's out in front of James White, shifty James White, pushing guys around. There's a picture of him in my basement somewhere when Sony Michel scores the game-winning touchdown against the Rams, of him just bench pressing one of the defensive linemen on the Rams off. There's basically one arm movement, left hand, just pushed a guy out, opened the hole for Sony Michel to dive through touchdown, right? Then he leaves, goes to Vegas, doesn't work out, is like a bum, right? So not a bum, but like they didn't like him. So the Patriots trade back for him. He comes back playing right tackle, doesn't work out over there. They switch him back to left tackle, and he's kind of like playing in front of Cam and Mac and just, not as motivated. I think he'd probably be more motivated playing with Burrow. I think he needs to play around a quarterback that he knows he can win with, because for Mac, he was like, barely visible. Getting run around a lot. Part of that, I feel like Mac Jones didn't motivate a lot of guys. I don't think he was much of a leader of men. He'd show flashes. I know everyone's all about it right now because he's a superstar in Jacksonville preseason, but like during the games, he just, kind of an oaf. Just, I don't know. Trent Brown needs to be motivated, and he can be as dominant as anyone. I know everyone always wants to play him at right tackle, but he was as good as any left tackle they've had. The Patriots had, and Patriots have had some Hall of Fame level left tackles, and I've watched them all the way back. Bruce Armstrong, Matt Light. There's been a good, Nate Solder. The Patriots didn't have a bad left tackle since like 92, and it's weird. Now they're terrible at it, but Trent Brown was certainly one of them. He just needs to be. He can be, and I think he will be for Cincinnati as good as a tackle as you could have in the league, as long as he's motivated, like I say.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited for both of these guys. I think last year, so the Bengals had their tight end signing last year was Irv Smith Jr., which I wasn't a big fan of to begin with. I think Burrow works a lot better with a more prototypical size tight end, and Irv Smith was 6'2", 220 something pounds. You have a guy like Mike Gesicki who's really tall at 6'6", pretty slender, can work a big slot. I think we're going to see, Hayden Hurst level of production from him this year. So I'm excited to see that from him. And then Trent Brown, as you said, I think he's been a really good offensive tackle for pretty much his entire career. The one thing I'm worried about him, though, is, people talk about Teron Armstead as being the offensive tackle that, is really good on the field when he's playing. But the problem is it's when he's playing, he's hurt quite a bit. Trent Brown has missed just as much time as Teron Armstead is throughout his career. So the injuries are kind of a concern with Trent Brown. And then also Amarius Mims seems to, our first round pick seems to be kind of injury prone as well. So that's going to be interesting for us to see there. So for the Patriots, I guess, is there like a player or a position group that you're optimistic about, or you're really intrigued in seeing in the 2023 season or 2024 season?
So, for projecting wise, I'd love to see the wide receivers, the young receivers develop. I know that the safeties that we have are probably, I would consider them probably the best safety group in the NFL. Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers. I think that's the best tandem in the NFL. I don't think you can get better than that. They can play corner, they can play, nickel, they can play linebacker if you want them to. They're leaders, both captains of the team. But you know what you're going to get out of that. I mean, they're just great players. They signed this guy Jalen Hawkins, so they have some deep ball, like the old Devin McCourty type position. So because they're both strong safety types, so it's kind of missing that. So they went out and got a free safety that will help them a bit. So I like watching them. I like watching I would like to see Christian Gonzalez. He was hurt last year after a few games, and
he looked really good last year. Yeah.
He shut down. I mean, I wouldn't say shut him down, but he had an interception playing against Tyreek Hill. He had a couple good games. So interested to see how he pans out this year, and just seeing like the rookie receiver, see if they're up to the task. Because in all honesty, we haven't had a rookie receiver since that did anything, going back to I think probably 2016 was the best, the last rookie receiver that did anything their rookie year. And that rookie receiver never played again. So it was, I don't know if you remember this guy, but he was Malcolm Mitchell. He was from Georgia. He was
I do remember that guy.
Yeah, he was good. I mean, he came out and he was really good as it took him like 6-7 weeks to get going. And then he was he was right in there on the last drive against the Falcons in the Super Bowl. And then he just couldn't get over whatever knee injury he had, and just never played again.
Now, are you coming to the game on Sunday? Or are you watching it from home?
I'll be watching at home. I am a season ticket holder, but I will not be coming to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we are season ticket holders as well for the Bengals, so we weren't sure if you were going to make the trip. So just to finish it off, do you have a prediction for Sunday?
Oddly enough, I think week ones are
hard to predict.
Feel them out games. They're like Patriots are 8.5 point underdogs in this game. I would say the Patriots cover, to be honest. I would think the Patriots are going to cover, even though it's going to be a terrible offensive show. I still think the defense is good enough to keep them within 8.5 points. But if I was to guess, I mean, I would say it's going to be a teens game, like Bengals 17, Patriots 10, something like that. That's kind of where I'm at. Bengals are certainly way better than them, but I just think it's like I said, I mean, last year the Patriots should have beat the Eagles at home in week one, and the Eagles were one of the best teams in the league up until they collapsed in the end. But yeah, I mean, they should have. I just think week one is just kind of like an extension of the preseason, and I think the defense is still going to be good enough to get them, kind of where they need to be.
Yeah,
in the end, which is losing within the spread.
Yeah.
Hey, appreciate you taking the time.
Spread.
It is a big spread.
It is. Hey, listen, I've lived on the other side of it for years. Now I can, just hopefully they cover, and that's it.
Maybe as long as we can get one of those rings, that's all we want. That's all we want.
You know what they say, Tony? Tony, they say good teams win, but great teams cover.
You're right about that, sir.
Hey, appreciate you taking the time for us. Again, if you want to, I know you said you don't like to plug, but if you got a plug for the Malcolm Go podcast, social medias and so on, here's your time.
Yeah, sure. I'm Brady Disciple on Twitter as my personal one, Brady Disciple. Then Malcolm Go Pod is the show, and again, we're just everywhere on Fansided, on Spotify, everywhere you get podcasts, Patreon. Malcolm Go Podcast. We talk Patriots. I call it a tailgate talk because it's more. I don't get into the X's and O's. I talk about the team, and we talk kind of like if you're at this, at the stadium drinking with your friends. That's kind of how we end up talking. So it's a lot of how's this game going to go, and then we lament how bad the team is, and then we talk about high school football. I don't know. We get off track very easily.
Listen, I'm always down to talk about some high school football here. It's always great. I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck this season. And anytime you need us, you know where to find us.
Yeah, I'll come out there and get some Skyline chili. Yeah, of course.
You absolutely need some Skyline. You're talking our language now.
Sounds like a real Italian delicacy.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. See you, Tony. Right. I appreciate it. That's Tony from the Malcolm Go podcast. I was going to get it there at some point, Mick, and now I got to fix this here because we're now messing up with that. Mick, do we have anything else here that we want to? There we go. We look a little bit better in that case. Anything you want to talk about Bengals Patriots, or do you want to drop in and make our predictions to close us out?
Yeah, let's go ahead and just do the predictions. I think we had a good time with Tony here previewing the Patriots. I do kind of agree with Tony, though. I think that the Patriots defense is still pretty darn good. Even with Bill Belichick leaving, I think you have a lot of good returning players, as he mentioned, Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, and that as the safety duo. I mean, I think that's a top 5, top 10 safety duo in the league. You have Christian Gonzalez coming back. Jamar Chase hasn't really. We don't know how much he's practiced yet. I guess he hasn't practiced at all, but how much rapport, how much rapport has he been, how much has he been working with Joe Burrow during training camp? I don't think we really know. So I think that it is going to be low scoring, maybe not a teens game, but I'm thinking like 24-17. And now 17 seems too high for the Patriots. I get 24-14. And the Bengals do actually cover this one.
24-17 was my exact pick that I was going to make. Bengals win 24-17. I don't know. It just seems like that's been in my mind all week, but I agree with him. I think that 8.5 is a little strong, but I don't know that there's anything that would other than the Patriots blowing the Bengals out. I don't think anything surprises me because it would not shock me if the Bengals win 31-10. If they come out there and they just stomp them. It wouldn't shock me if they win 14-13. It wouldn't shock me if the Patriots win 17-14. Just because the slow starts have been something. I'm just going to be really interested to see how it goes along. Again, Bengals versus Patriots, 1 o'clock on CBS. Ian Eagle and Charles Davis will have the call. So you get the bird, which is always a good thing. Open and orange, remember? Mick, we've both gone with our orange here today. So remember, if you're going to the game, wear your orange. They're hoping to orange out the stadium. The referee, do you know who the referee is going to be on Sunday yet, Mick?
No.
Land Clark.
I don't even know who that guy is.
Bengals are 1-3 in Land Clark games. Last time they had him was Saints in 2022.
Hey, that was a win.
It was. That was the one win. 1-3 all time. Bears in 2021, game that they should have won. Game that we'd like to forget, the Ravens season close in 2020, which technically in 2021, that was the 34-6 or 34-3 or whatever it was. It was really, really bad at Paycor.
Yeah.
And then the Colts earlier that season in 2020 are the Land Clark referee games. The ruler of the jungle on Sunday is going to be Dan Hurley, University of Connecticut men's basketball coach who is an outspoken Bengals fan. I love it.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I did know that he was a big Bengals fan because I just heard that over the years. And his story is really cool. He fell in love with them because the Bengals offensive linemen didn't wear sleeves. was pretty much the reason why he became a Bengals fan, which is a really cool. And then the halftime show. Have you heard about the halftime show, Mick?
No.
Oh, you're going to love this. Joey Chestnut. You know who he is, right?
Oh, is he going to eat hot dogs?
Bratwursts. But from what it sounds like, he is going to go 1 versus 5 regular men and see if he can eat more bratwursts than 5 regular men. So, Mick, I ask you right now, I told you to open up the show that I was going to have a food topic for you. How many bratwursts could you legitimately eat walking into Paycor Stadium on Sunday if you were chosen as one of the 5?
Oh.
So you got to think a bratwurst is a little bigger than a regular hot dog.
I'd probably go 4. I'd probably say 4.
Yeah, see, that was probably my number 2. I was expecting you didn't think yourself a little higher.
Maybe 6. I don't know.
So I think I would assume that I don't know how long they're going to do this contest for Joey Chestnut, but let's say it's 10 minutes. How many does he eat?
25.
Oh, over.
Over 25?
Oh.
Because I'm thinking maybe 30.
I mean, he eats, what's his hot dog record? His hot dog record is like 82.
Well, the thing is that, well, yeah, you said 82 hot dogs.
83 hot dogs in 10 minutes.
Let's say that's like 40 brats, right? Also, he's going up against normal people, so he's probably not going to try and like break any records or anything like that. This isn't the Nathan's Hot Dog Challenge. This is a halftime show at Paycor Stadium,
which means more,
right?
He couldn't compete in Nathan's. He couldn't compete in the Nathan's Hot Dog eating contest though this year because he signed a deal with a vegan hot dog place.
He's doing a Kobayashi. He's doing a matchup against Kobayashi on Netflix.
But I don't know. I just found it funny that 1 versus 5, and I really hope that they just literally, as people are walking into the stadium, they're like, "You're eating hot dogs against Joey Chestnut on." It's like, and then and they just pick 5 random people. They get a small child up there. They get our buddy Josh Isles. They get Alex Schubert on one leg. They get you, and I'll stand there and I'll watch.
Yeah, because you're not contributing anything to that team.
Well, I think I could put down 4 easily, which is the amount you said.
You think you? I don't think you could put down.
Yes, 4. Without question, I could. We did on our other podcast. We did a contest, and I put down 4 hot dogs in 10 minutes, and that was without me pushing. And I think I could have pushed for 1 more. I think I could get at least 4 because I'd be motivated.
But brats are twice the size of hot dogs.
Not twice the size, but
I'd say about twice.
I don't know. But still, I would not want to do that because I don't want to be miserable regardless for the rest of the game. Because
also, like, I'm not a big bratwurst guy. So, like, unless if it's got some good char on it. Like, if it's got char, I'll eat it. But like, if it's like a boiled bratwurst, I'm not about that.
And I don't know how they do them at Paycor. Probably a mix.
Probably not great, if I had to guess. So their food's not very good there.
No, but then again, I mean, it's not like you're going there to eat.
You go to the Red Stadium for good food.
Yes, the Red Stadium.
You're not seeing good baseball.
Exactly. So there you go. You've transitioned out to do that. I'm excited though for Sunday. The weather. I don't know. Have you seen the weather?
70. It's gonna be like 60.
It's gonna be. If anything else, I look like when we are gonna begin tailgating, it's almost gonna be below 50.
Am I gonna have to wear sleeves?
That's what I'm wondering. Like I was sitting there.
Am I gonna have to break out the hand warmers this week?
Of course you would. It's gonna be 70 degrees. You might have to break out the hand warmer. But that's what was wild to me is usually this 70-degree game is the one that we get in like that first game in October, like the Ravens game. Or maybe even one of those late October games. We get that
I was gonna say more late October, early November. that Bills Sunday night game last year.
Yeah, because remember we wore jackets and then had to get rid of the jackets by the time the game started, because it was getting chilly or getting warm rather. But I'm excited. If you're looking for a place to tailgate, we usually hang out at Bengal gyms. Come up and say hi. Tell us how our Bengals bold predictions were right or wrong. You're allowed to say whatever we want. The only thing we require, Mick, for them, if they want to say that we're wrong, is they have to at least be subscribed to us first. Deal?
Yes.
Then you could tell us whatever you want to our face. Whatever you want. You want. Any parting thoughts or predictions for Sunday's game against the Patriots?
Parting thoughts. If you're going to the game, hope we get to see you there. Come down to Bengal Gym's tailgate. That's where we will be, hanging out with all of our friends. I can't wait to see everybody again. It's been a while since we've seen those guys. So if you're going to the game, stay safe. Don't headbutt anybody, because that's what happened last year, week 2. Yeah. Who day? Hopefully we get to see a win.
Want to thank Tony too from coming on. Make sure to follow him on his social media channels as well. He was great. He was our first ever interview on Jungle Juice, and I think it went really well. Next week, we are going to be talking to some of our new friends from the Chiefs podcast as well that we're looking forward to. I'm fascinated, Mick, by one of the questions I'm already planning on asking, and maybe they're watching and they'll be planned is, do the Chiefs feel the same way about us as we do about them when it comes to the rivalries? I'm interested. That'll be a discussion that we'll have to have next week, hopefully celebrating a big Bengals win over the Patriots. So until next week, remember to follow us on all of our social media channels. We're on your favorite podcasting platform as well. Mick, Houday, and I'll see you this weekend.
Yep, Houday.